This happened about 2 years ago, on a night that was nearly identical to tonight. Constant rain, steady wind, the kind that makes trees sway just enough to feel like they're watching you. I live in a quiet rural neighborhood and rent a small house tucked behind a line of trees, maybe 5 minutes from the main road. It's peaceful most of the time, and I like being away from people. But on nights like this, when the storm starts messing with the lights and every creak sounds louder, it makes you wonder why you ever chose to live alone. It was around 10:30 at night, and I was just settling in for the night. I had some leftover curry on the stove and was watching a horror movie on my laptop fitting. I know everything was pretty normal, until my dog Luna suddenly perked up. She's a lab husky mix, so usually mellow but extremely alert when something's off. She got up from the couch where she'd been curled up and started growling at the front door. Not barking, just this low, deep rumble. She only makes when she's dead serious. I muted the movie and listened. At first I didn't hear anything, but then came a slow, deliberate knock. Not a loud bang, not someone pounding, just a single knock followed by silence, the kind that makes your stomach drop. I froze for a few seconds trying to decide whether to check or just pretend I didn't hear it. Finally, I got up and walked to the door, peeking out the small side window. There was a man standing there, no umbrella, no raincoat, just standing motionless in the rain, like he didn't feel it. His clothes were soaked through his hair, plastered to his forehead, and he was just looking down. Not even at the door, just down. He hadn't noticed me yet. Or at least, I don't think he did. I stood there, heart pounding, watching him do nothing for what felt like forever. Eventually, he knocked again, this time louder, and then looked up directly into the window. His face was pale and he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even creepy. More like the kind of smile someone makes when they know something you don't. That was enough for me. I stepped back from the window, grabbed my phone and called 911. I didn't even try to talk to him. I just told dispatch. There was a man at my door in the middle of a storm, and I didn't know him, and he wouldn't leave. His face was pale and he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even creepy. More like the kind of smile someone makes when they know something you don't. That was enough for me. I stepped back from the window, grabbed my phone and called 911. I didn't even try to talk to him. I just told dispatch. There was a man at my door in the middle of a storm, and I didn't know him, and he wouldn't leave. While I was on the phone, Luna kept growling and pacing between me and the door. The man kept knocking slowly, then waiting, each knock louder than the last. By the time the dispatcher said help was on the way, the knocking had stopped and the front porch was empty. I waited in the kitchen with Luna until the police arrived. When they checked outside, they didn't find anyone, but they did see something in the muddy grass by the porch steps, bare footprints, and not just one set, multiple overlapping, like he'd been walking in circles waiting. But the creepiest part was what the officer said next. He asked if I'd seen him get there or leave. I said no, just that he appeared and then vanished. Apparently, the mud trail didn't lead to the road or driveway. Instead, the footprints circled the house twice, then stopped right at the back door, as if he was trying each entrance, slowly, patiently. I still live here, and I still wonder what he would have done if I'd opened the door or taken longer to call for help. But that wasn't the end of it. I wish it had been. But things got weirder after that for a while. It was just silence, maybe a couple weeks, and nothing happened. I told myself it was a random thing, a drifter or someone mentally unwell, maybe just passing through in the middle of the storm, trying to find shelter. But something about it always nagged at me, because the expression he made when he looked up into the window, it wasn't one of desperation. It was like amusement. Then a couple weeks later, it rained again. Same kind of storm, same heavy atmosphere. Luna was curled up by the couch again, This time, a little more on edge, like she hadn't quite forgotten that night I was trying to relax, but I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting that knock again. It never came, at least not that night, but I did notice something else around midnight. I got up to lock the back door, and as I passed the window above the sink, something caught my eye. I looked out into the dark and the rain and saw nothing at first, but then, there it was, barely visible against the tree line, a figure not moving, not approaching, just watching. I froze and stared, trying to convince myself it was a branch or a trick of the light, but it was a man. I'm almost sure it was the same one, same soaked clothes, same posture, and once again, no umbrella. I turned all the lights off immediately and stayed low. Luna was alert now, growling like before. We stayed like that for hours, not moving, just listening. Finally, the sky started to lighten with morning, and when I looked again, he was gone. The ground was too saturated to hold any new footprints clearly, but I know what I saw. I called the police again. They drove through the area, but found nothing, and no signs. Anyone had even been there. That should have been the end of it. But it kept happening. Not every storm, not even every month, but just often enough to keep me afraid. And always the same, never knocking again. Just standing somewhere in view. Not always close, sometimes across the street, sometimes behind the shed. Once he was just standing in the shallow ditch between the fence and the woods, staring straight at the house, never moving, never speaking, always drenched and always silent. It started with flickering lights, strange sounds, and Luna scratching at the door, something she never did. Then one night, a letter slid under my door. No envelope, just smeared ink. Why did you lock me out? I moved out soon after without explaining. My new place felt safer. Top floor, many windows, neighbors nearby. But when it rains, I still shut the blinds, kill the lights, and listen. Because I never knew what he wanted, or how long he'd been watching. And part of me fears he'll come back.
This happened when I was staying in a hotel for a work trip. Nothing fancy, just one of those mid-level business hotels with a breakfast bar and a vending machine in the lobby. I'd gotten in late from the airport, and it was raining like crazy, out the kind of rain that seems louder than anything else. Like static poured from the sky. The front desk guy gave me my key card and room number 5th floor. I remember because he said the elevator was kind of slow and to be patient. The lobby was empty. The kind of empty that only hotels get late at night, where the lights are dimmed low and the air smells like lemon cleaner and coffee filters and rain. I made my way over to the elevator, which was off to the left, past the ice machine. The panel lit up slowly when I hit the button, and I could hear it clunking down from somewhere above me, like the whole system was too old to still be working. When it arrived, the doors creaked open and I stepped inside. Alone, the lights buzzed faintly and the floor groaned under my shoes. I pressed 5 and leaned back against the wall, watching the numbers light up one by one. It stopped on 3, and that's when the woman got on. She looked like she'd just come in from the storm, wearing a long dark coat and holding a black umbrella that was still dripping wet. She didn't say anything, just gave a slight nod when our eyes met, and turned to face the doors. She didn't hit any buttons, and I assumed she was going to the top floor like me. The doors shut, and we started moving again. It was quiet for a moment, just the low mechanical hum and the patter of water from the umbrella hitting the floor. Then the elevator stopped again, only this time. Not the way it's supposed to. There was this sharp jolt like hitting a speed bump too fast, and all the lights inside dimmed for a second and flickered back. I looked over at her, but she didn't move. Not even a twitch. She just kept staring at the doors like nothing had happened. I pressed the door open button. Nothing happened. No ding. No delay, just nothing. I hit it again, then tried the emergency button, which didn't even light up. I was about to ask if she was okay or if she'd seen elevators do this before. When she turned to face me, her face was completely dry. Not a single drop of water on her. Even though the umbrella in her hand was soaked, and you could still hear the storm raging outside. She stared at me with these glassy, unmoving eyes and said quietly, "Don't leave when it opens." Then turned back to face the door again. That was it. Just those words in a tone that felt rehearsed or distant. Like she was quoting something, not speaking it. And something about the way she said it chilled me deeper than the rain outside the elevator lurched again. Softer this time, and resumed climbing. Except now, instead of stopping at 5, like I expected, it went up one more number and stopped at 6. There was no 6 on the button panel, just 1 through 5 and lobby, but the doors opened anyway. I've never seen a hallway like that in a hotel. The lights weren't just off, they were gone, like the bulbs themselves had been removed. The wallpaper was yellowed and curling at the edges with large brownish stains creeping along the seams. The carpet, or what was left of it, was matted and torn, like it hadn't been cleaned in years, and the smell was thick and wet. A mix of mildew metal and something sour that made the back of my throat burn. I couldn't see far, but it felt like the hallway went on forever. No doors, just empty walls, broken picture frames, and a low, almost electric hum, like the whole place was holding its breath. I turned to ask the woman if this was some kind of joke or weird coincidence. Maybe a power glitch or a hidden floor or something. I don't know. I was reaching for logic, but she was gone. Completely gone. Not even wet footprints from her shoes. Not even the umbrella, just me in this flickering elevator with a view into somewhere I wasn't supposed to see. And then the doors started to close on their own. I didn't press anything. They just slowly started to close inch by inch. And I didn't stop them. I backed up to the corner of the elevator, staring at that hallway as it disappeared piece by piece behind the metal doors. And then they shut completely, and the elevator started going down. It took me to the lobby, no stops, no noises, just straight back down the same slow hum as always when the doors opened. Everything looked the same, but I felt completely different. I walked over to the front desk, where the guy was still standing, and asked if anyone else had just checked in. If someone else had used the elevator. He looked confused and said, "No," that nobody else had come in since I arrived. Over an hour ago, I asked him if the 6th floor was under construction or hidden for any reason, and he kind of chuckled and said the hotel only had 5 floors. Always had. He offered to send someone up with me to check the buttons. Said maybe the panel glitched or the storm was messing with the wiring. But I just thanked him and said I'd take the stairs instead when I went back. Later, there was no 6 on the panel, not even a blank spot, just buttons 1 through 5, and the lobby like always, and the elevator worked totally normal. No bumps, no flickers, no weird stops. And the rest of the trip was uneventful. Just meetings and hotel breakfasts and the usual awkward small talk with coworkers. I didn't take the elevator again. Not even once. Sometimes I lie awake at night thinking about what might have been down that hallway where it really led, and what would have happened if I'd stepped out if the doors had closed behind me, if that woman hadn't warned me or maybe lured me there. I still don't know what she was, what she meant, or why she looked completely dry in the middle of a thunderstorm, but I believe she saved me. I don't know from what, or from who, or from where, but I believe it. I think there are places we're not supposed to find hidden floors, hallways that go nowhere, doors that don't belong, and elevators that take you somewhere other than where you asked to go. And if you ever find yourself in one of those places and the doors open into something that feels wrong, something that smells wrong, something that looks like it hasn't been touched by the world in decades, don't leave when it opens.
This happened when I was 17, and it still makes me stop when I drive past certain roads late at night, especially when it's raining this night. In particular, it was pouring hard enough that you couldn't even hear your own car engine half the time, just the slamming of water on the windshield. I was driving back from my girlfriend's place and took a shortcut that cuts through an old industrial part of town. It was way faster but super isolated and ran under this long graffiti-covered overpass that always creeped me out a little. There are no streetlights under there, just one long pitch-black tunnel you get through and hope your headlights are working. As I was halfway into the underpass, something caught my eye to the left. There was someone standing in the narrow space between the sidewalk and the wall. A young woman drenched in rain hair plastered to her face, just standing there looking straight ahead, not even reacting to my car passing, just staring forward with this vacant expression. I slowed down instinctively and looked back through the rearview mirror. But she wasn't there anymore. She couldn't have walked away that fast, not in the pouring rain on a flat stretch of road like that. I stopped the car just outside the tunnel, debating whether to turn around, but something in my stomach said no.
So I kept driving. I got home maybe 10 minutes later and tried to shake it off, thinking maybe I imagined her or something. But then about an hour after I got home, while I was in the kitchen getting a snack, I glanced out the window facing the driveway and saw wet footprints, like barefoot footprints on the concrete leading up to my side door. There were only 6 of them, like someone walked halfway up and then disappeared. I opened the door and looked around, but the rain had washed most of the ground clean already, and there was nobody out there, no sign of anyone ever being there later. I checked my car and found something even worse in the back seat on the floor. There was a small, soaked hair tie just sitting there. I swear to you it wasn't mine, and my girlfriend never wore those elastic kinds. I didn't even see anyone get in my car, but I'm almost sure that girl somehow did. The next day I told a friend about it and he got super weird and asked me to describe her. When I did, his face went, and he said someone matching that exact description had died by suicide at that underpass years ago, and that some drivers reported seeing her still late at night, especially during storms. I never took that shortcut again. But the thing is, even though I never drove that road again after that night, I kept seeing her. Not clearly, never full on, standing there like before, but out of the corner of my eye, in the rain, on sidewalks, just shapes in the dark that looked familiar. Once I swore I saw her reflection in a store window walking behind me when nobody was there. 2 weeks after it first happened, I was sleeping and woke up to this dripping sound. I thought maybe I left the bathroom faucet on or something, but it was too steady, too rhythmic. I sat up and realized it was coming from my bedroom window, not from outside, from the glass itself, like it was tapping. I got up and pulled back the curtain, and my heart just about exploded. There were handprints all over the outside of the window, wet, smeared handprints like someone pressed their palms and fingers over and over across the glass, and the dripping sound was from water running down over them. I live on the 2nd floor.
I barely slept that night. I didn't tell anyone because, honestly, what do you even say? It's not like the police could do anything about a ghost, and deep down I knew what this was, and that it wasn't going to stop just because I stopped driving past her about a month later. My girlfriend and I broke up. Not because of this, but After it happened, I started acting weird, not wanting to go out at night, being constantly tired, always checking the car before driving anywhere. It was like something broke in my brain after seeing that girl, and I never quite went back to normal. One night after the breakup, I was out with friends trying to drink and forget everything. When I had to step outside for air, I walked around the side of the bar just to get away from the music, and as soon as I turned the corner, I saw her again, not far away, standing at the edge of the parking lot, completely still, her soaked hair hanging over her eyes, and for the first time she looked directly at me. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Just stared until I blinked, and she was gone. When I looked down, the pavement was dry except for two small wet circles where her feet had been. I got in my car and drove straight home and started digging for answers. It took a while, but eventually I found an old newspaper article from 2002 about a girl named Hannah L. She was 17, same as me when she died. Apparently she'd run away from home and was last seen walking along that road during a storm. Police found her body under the overpass. Cause of death was ruled suicide, but the details were vague, and the article said the family never gave a statement.
The scariest part, though, was the picture in the article. It was the same girl, absolutely no question. The same soaked hair, the same narrow face, even the same expression, that cold, distant stare, like she wasn't looking at you, but through you. I printed the photo and still have it tucked into the back of a notebook. Not because I want to remember, but because part of me is scared that if I throw it away she'll come back, or maybe she never left. Maybe she just moved on to someone else. Maybe some other kid will take that shortcut and see her in the rain and make the mistake of slowing down. All I know is that whatever she is, whatever she wants, it doesn't stop at the roadside. She follows you, she watches. And worst of all, she waits.
This happened last year, sometime in mid-fall, October or November, I think. It was one of those nights where the weather says light drizzle, and then around 9 p.m., the skies just open up and dump rain like a waterfall. I live alone in a small one-story house tucked back in the woods, not too far from town, but far enough that you can't see neighbors through the trees. My backyard stretches out about half an acre before it drops into a steep wooded hill that leads to a creek. That night, I was watching some dumb reality show with the volume turned up high. The rain pounding the roof was so loud. I've always liked storms. Halfway through the show, I caught a faint flash in the backyard, just out of the corner of my eye. Thought it might be lightning, but there was no thunder. It wasn't a bolt either, just a soft, pulsing, bluish-green glow. At first, I figured it might be a reflection from the TV. But then I saw it again, clearer this time, just past the window above the kitchen sink. I turned off the TV. The room fell quiet except for the pounding rain. Nothing happened at first. I stood by the window trying to see, but it was too dark and wet. Then the glow came back, further out now, still that strange blue-green, and there were two of them. Lights, cantaloupe-sized, just bobbing near the edge of the trees. I thought maybe drones, but who flies drones in a storm? And they weren't flying, just hovering, then dipping like being carried. I grabbed my phone, tried the camera. Too dark, just rain and blur. I zoomed in anyway. One of them started moving toward the house, not fast, not floating, just drifting, steady and slow. The other stayed behind, pulsing softly. My stomach tightened. I lowered the phone and looked. The rain didn't touch it. The glow didn't flicker. It just kept coming, pulsing gently every few seconds. Now it was maybe halfway across the yard. I thought about going outside to get a better look, but something about it just felt wrong. like instinctively wrong. Instead, I went and grabbed the flashlight from the drawer in the kitchen and aimed it out through the glass door leading to the deck. The beam didn't reach far, but enough to light up the first dozen feet of backyard. The glowing orb didn't react at all. It just kept coming closer until it was almost at the edge of the light. And now I could see it wasn't just a light, there was something attached to it, or maybe something holding it. I still don't know how to describe it clearly, but there was a shape behind the glow. Something tall and thin, maybe 7 feet or more. It was barely visible except when the light hit the rain behind it. Just right, like it bent the water or something and gave away its outline. I just stood there, frozen flashlight shaking in my hand. Then the power went out. Total darkness except for that glow in the backyard. The second light was gone now. No idea when that happened, but I didn't see it anymore. Just this one shape, this thing still slowly moving forward. I backed away from the door, slowly grabbing my phone again and dialing 911. I kept my eyes on the backyard as the rain kept hammering the roof, but the operator picked up and I couldn't even speak. At first, just kind of whispered that there was someone or something in my backyard the whole time I was talking. I could see the thing stop just at the edge of the deck. I don't know how long it stood there, maybe a minute, maybe more. But then it started to back away. Slowly, just the same way it came, the glow faded into the trees and disappeared. The power came back on. About 10 minutes later, the cops showed up. Almost 30 minutes after that, they searched the whole area and obviously didn't find anything. No footprints, no sign of anything ever being there. But here's the part that really messed me up. The officer was trying to reassure me, probably thought I was just tired or saw a reflection or something. But when he went out to the backyard and I was standing at the door watching him, his flashlight caught something on one of the trees near the edge of the woods. There were these long gouges carved into the bark about 7 feet off the ground. 4 long scratches deep into the tree like claw marks. They had no explanation for it. Neither did I. After that night, I bought blackout curtains for every window facing the backyard and started keeping the porch light on all night. Even if it didn't help, it made me feel safer. I didn't sleep well for weeks, kept jolting awake at the smallest sounds and always checking to see if the power was still on, if the lights outside were still working. I even set up one of those cheap trail cameras at the edge of the deck, pointed out at the trees. Nothing ever showed up. Not once I told a couple people about what happened. Some laughed it off. Some looked worried. One guy I work with who grew up in the area told me a story his grandpa used to tell about lights in the woods that didn't belong to any person or animal. He said they were spirits or maybe things older than that. Watchers, maybe he said they only came when the rain was heavy and the world was quiet enough for them to cross over. I don't know if I believe all that, but I do know what I saw and I know how it felt wrong. Like looking at something your brain wasn't meant to see. Like your instincts were screaming, run before your thoughts could even catch up. And I've never forgotten the outline of that thing, just barely there behind the glow. I still live in the same house. I still like storms too, but I never sit with the lights off anymore. And I haven't stepped into that backyard after dark, even once since that night. Sometimes when it rains hard enough and the wind dies down just a little, I swear I can hear something moving out there between the trees, but I won't go. Look, I don't need to. I already know what I'd see.
This happened back in 2019 when I was working security at a distribution center just outside Tacoma, Washington night shift. Mostly long hours. Quiet, lots of coffee, and not much else. The place was massive, rows and rows of metal buildings and parking lots all surrounded by tall trees and chain-link fencing. The air always smelled faintly of wet cardboard and diesel. Not terrible, just constant like the place had absorbed it over the years. I was posted up alone in the guard booth. A small prefab thing with a heater that only worked when it wanted to, a beat-up company laptop for logging trucks, and a handheld radio that picked up more static than voices. Routine was everything on those shifts. Coffee at 11 loop at 12, paperwork at 1 another, loop at 3, and so. On the company truck was a dented old Ford with a busted left blinker and wipers that squealed loud enough to make you wince, but it ran. What always bugged me was the west fence line, this long overgrown stretch with floodlights that barely worked, and a massive storm drain that jutted out from the brush like a forgotten relic. The thing looked ancient, heavy iron grate, busted on one side like something had torn at it. Over the years, I asked my supervisor about it once, and he just shrugged, said it was drainage runoff from when the facility used to be a lumber mill way before our time. So this one night it's pouring rain, sideways sheets of it bouncing off the pavement and rattling the booth windows. I was halfway through my 3 a.m. loop, riding slow headlights cutting through fog, when I saw movement near the drain. Just a flicker like something low to the ground, shifting in the dark. At first, I figured it was a raccoon or maybe a stray dog. They came around, sometimes looking for trash, but when I turned the truck slightly and aimed the light straight at the opening, I saw it. It was crouched by the mouth of the drain, facing inward, back toward me, hunched down like it was listening to something coming from deep inside the pipe. The rain was coming down so hard it blurred everything, but I could still make out the shape. Pale gray skin, almost translucent. Long, thin arms resting beside it. Not bracing like an animal. Just placed there, it wasn't wearing clothes and it didn't have hair. Its back looked too long, like someone stretched it out, and the way the spine curled under the skin reminded me of plastic tubing, like a mannequin left out in the sun for too long and warped by heat. I honked the horn once sharp and loud, thinking it would react. Maybe run off, but it didn't flinch. Didn't even twitch. Just stayed there like it hadn't heard me at all. I watched it for maybe 30 seconds, unsure if I should get out and check it or keep driving. But something about it felt wrong. Not scary exactly, just wrong. Like looking at a photograph that's been edited in ways you can't explain. I backed the truck up, slow, not wanting to turn my back on it, and radioed my supervisor. No answer, which wasn't surprising. Shift change was still a ways off, and reception was always spotty. Out near the trees, I sat there with the rain pounding the roof, staring at that unmoving figure until I couldn't take it anymore. Turned the truck around and did another full loop, thinking, maybe when I came back it would be gone. And it was just like that. No sign, no trail. No disturbed mud, no footprints leading away from the pipe. Just the gate swinging slightly like the wind had caught it or something brushed past it a few minutes earlier. Next morning, I checked the cameras. I had to know if I imagined it. The west lot camera was old, always a little grainy. But there it was at 3:06 a.m., barely visible on the far edge of the screen. A blur that only resolved into a shape. If you watched long enough, it appeared crouched near the drain. Didn't walk up or crawl out. It was just there, stayed for about 90 seconds, then disappeared like fog lifting off the road. No exit, no movement away from the area, just gone. I saved the footage, marked it for review. Didn't tell anyone yet. Figured I'd wait until the next shift and bring it up. Casually, see if anyone else had seen anything similar. But when I logged in again, 2 days later, it was missing. System had auto-updated and wiped the last 2 weeks of footage, no backups, no recovery option. I even asked IT. They just shrugged, said the system purges old files after firmware upgrades. I know what I saw, and it gets weirder. I transferred out a month later. Got a new job in a different part of the state. But sometimes when I'm back in Tacoma driving the old roads, I pass by the edge of that property. And I always look out toward the trees by the west fence. And sometimes I swear I see something just for a second, crouched low in the brush watching the spot where the drain used to be, and I wonder what it was waiting for. Or worse, if it was ever really gone. About 2 weeks later, subcontractors show up. Middle of the day, guys in unmarked trucks wearing bright vests and carrying welding tools said they were infrastructure inspection. No one had mentioned them on the schedule. They went straight to the west fence line, didn't check anything else, didn't talk to anyone, just spent hours cutting into the metal. Around that drain, by the end of the shift, the gate was welded shut, thick plate across the opening, sealed like they were burying something. I asked my supervisor what was going on, and he just muttered something about new drainage codes and walked off fast like he didn't want to talk about it.